Hello friends, welcome back. Can you believe it's mid-October already? And it has been a beautiful fall here in Washington State. I know many of you still have warm weather, but no matter where you're at, this is the time of year for fall activities, outdoor activities, pumpkin patches, corn mazes, hikes. So I wanted to bring you a really good, warm, cozy fall menu, but also something you could take on those outdoor activities as a snack. So let's go ahead and start with the beef jerky. This is our take-along snack. So today I'm going to use the Nesco jerky seasoning mix. You can have your own seasoning mix, but I'm just going to do this because it's quick and easy. And it comes with the cure pack too. So I'm going to do two different kinds. I'm going to do original and teriyaki. And I'm going to mix them with 1 pound of hamburger. So this is going to make it really salty. So if you want it less salty, I would suggest a little bit more hamburger. So I'm going to mix them in a measuring cup with about a tablespoon of Worcestershire. You don't have to do that. That's just how I do it, with just a little bit of water, just maybe about a 1/4 cup of water. And I'm going to add that to my hamburger mix.
I want to lick the spoon. I want to lick the spoon.
My husband is so funny. He loves salt. So once you get it in there, you want to mix it in the hamburger really well. And I cover mine with clear plastic wrap and stick it in the fridge. So you can leave it in there for an hour or overnight. I just left it in there for maybe about 2 hours. And this is just how I do it. I put some plastic wrap on the counter, and you can see how the hamburger has darkened and really taken on that seasoning really well. And what I do is I just grab little bits at a time, maybe like a little less than a golf ball size, and I use another piece of saran wrap or clear plastic wrap and put it over the top of it. And I'm just going to use a rolling pin. You can use whatever is handy, you know, however you feel comfortable doing this. And you want to roll it out to as thick as you would like your beef jerky to be. So I have found that using the clear wrap makes it easy to transfer it over to my dehydrator and get it on there. Otherwise, it's going to be really tricky to get up off the counter and move it. So, like I said, I'm going to use a dehydrator, and I'm going to leave it in there on the highest setting for about 5 hours. So you can do this in your oven as well. So if you don't have a dehydrator, no issue there. Put your oven on the lowest setting, about 175, and probably for about the same amount of time. I would start checking it at around 3 hours, whether you're using the oven or a dehydrator, and get it to the crispiness or the chewiness that you prefer for beef jerky. And again, I want to remind you, you can make your own seasoning mix for this. It's super simple, just the spices and seasonings you like. You want it salty, and if you want it smoky, add paprika and liquid smoke, and you're good to go. Okay, our beef jerky is done. It is absolutely perfect. It is just the right amount of crispiness and still a little bit of chewiness, but just how we like it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to score it with a knife and just break off those pieces into strips. So don't worry about having perfect little strips if you don't have a beef jerky gun. We don't, and this is how we do it. It turns out perfect every time. So I'm going to add some in snack bags for us, and the rest I'm going to freeze, and it freezes beautifully.
Beef jerky. Homemade.
How is it? Let's see.
It's great.
Okay, now that that's taken care of, let's move on to dinner. So I'm going to share my personal recipe with you guys for chili. And I know everyone thinks their chili's the best, but really, truly, this is a great recipe. So I start with 2 pounds of ground beef and I brown it through. I added 2 tablespoons of Johnnies seasoning salt and 1 tablespoon of taco seasoning. And after that's browned, I'm going to go ahead and chop up 1 red pepper. And it's about a medium size. You guys use whatever color you like best. I just like the red in there. And I'm also going to add 1 medium-sized white onion. Again, use whatever onion that you prefer. I just like the white in there. So I'm also going to add 1.5 tablespoons of minced garlic. And I'm also going to chop up, just rough chop, 3 medium-sized fresh tomatoes. And I'm going to add those in there, liquid, seeds, and all, because there's really not that many seeds in a smaller size tomato. And once the juices from those tomatoes has been released, then I'm going to go ahead and add 2 stalks of celery, diced up nicely, because I want these to be just a little bit more crunchy. And they seem to stay a little more crunchy when you add them at the end of cooking the hamburger mix. So I'm also going to add 1 4-ounce can of hot diced green chilies. So my husband likes hot, and this doesn't make it too hot. This isn't a super spicy chili, but it is a little spicy. So I'm going to go ahead and add it to my crock pot along with 1 quart of homemade stewed tomatoes. You guys can use store-bought stewed tomatoes. So 1 quart would be 32 ounces. Okay, so in a separate little container, I'm just using a measuring cup. I'm going to mix together 1/2 cup of barbecue sauce, and I use Tangy from Open Pit, and 1/4 cup of spicy Stubbs barbecue sauce, and about 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire, and 1/4 cup of chili sauce. And then I'm going to add 3 tablespoons of chili seasoning, 1 tablespoon of pure maple syrup. So you could substitute that for honey if you prefer, but the maple really gives it a good flavor. And I'm also going to add 2 teaspoons of chicken bouillon with about 1/4 cup of water. Mix those all together. And then I'm going to add it to my hamburger mix in the crock pot. So here's where you're going to taste it and see if it needs more salt. And you can add black pepper here too if you'd like. So I'm going to turn my crock pot on high, and I'm going to add 1 can of red kidney beans and 1 can of pinto beans, both rinsed and drained. And I'm going to let that cook for about 2 hours on high and let those flavors really marry together. And then I'm going to turn it on low and let it cook for at least another 3 hours. So about the last hour, I'm going to add about 1/4 cup of flour to just a little bit of water to make a paste. And I'm going to add that to my chili, and that's going to thicken it up a little bit. So if you want more of a home style chili, you could just skip that step, but I like it thickened. Okay, so if you're gonna have chili, nothing goes better with chili than cornbread. So this one is so good. This is a dessert cornbread, and it's so good. It's actually called Slap Your Momma Cornbread. So it's just so good. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna mix together 1.5 cups of milk and 1/2 cup of sour cream. And I'm gonna mix those together really well, and then I'm gonna set that aside. Okay, so in a separate bowl, I'm going to mix 1 cup of softened butter with 1 3/4 cup of sugar. And I'm going to use an electric mixer, and I'm going to mix it until the sugars really break down and it becomes light and fluffy and creamy. And that's going to take about 2 to 3 minutes of mixing. So next I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of almond extract and 1 teaspoon of maple flavoring. And you could just use 2 teaspoons of vanilla if that's what you prefer. I've just personally found that maple flavoring in the cornbread really goes with my chili. So once I get that mixed up, I'm gonna add 5 eggs and 2 egg yolks, one at a time. So you may have noticed already this is not a traditional cornbread. This one does take a little bit more time, mixing the eggs in between each, making sure they're mixed in really well. But this cornbread is not traditional, but it is so worth the extra time, trust me. So next I'm going to add a 1/4 cup of cooking oil and mix that in. Then I'm going to grab a separate bowl for my dry ingredients. And that's going to be 3 1/4 cup of flour, 1 tablespoon of baking powder, 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda, and about a teaspoon of salt, and 1 cup of yellow cornmeal. So once I get that mixed together, I'm going to add this to my liquid mixture, alternating between the flour and the milk mix. So again, this is going to take a little extra time, but trust me on this one. This cornbread is unbelievable. And honestly, I just kind of feel like if I'm going to take the time to make a really good home-cooked hearty chili instead of just opening a couple of cans of chili, then I want to serve it with a really good quality cornbread instead of just a basic cornbread. So once I get this mixed together, I'm going to grease a baking dish and pour my cornbread mixture in there. I'm going to pop it in a 350 oven, and I'm going to let it bake for about 25 to 30 minutes. So when the time comes, you check for doneness with either a knife or a toothpick, and when it's ready to go, you go ahead and serve everything up. I actually like to serve my chili with a little sour cream on top, but you could do shredded cheese or onions. Actually, I like to eat mine with wedged onions, like you'd wedge up an apple. That's how my grandpa did it. And what you do is you take a bite of chili, take a bite of cornbread, take a bite of onion. Oh my goodness, it's so good. Takes me back in time. So if you remember right, I said this is a dessert cornbread. So in the South, this is a delicacy. You take your piece of cornbread and crumble it up in a glass and add ice cold milk over the top of that, and you eat it with a spoon. Oh my goodness, this is so good. So anyway, I hope you guys like these recipes, and I hope you're having a great day. I'll talk to you next time.